flop.
Flop. I like that.
Flop.
Candle.
Bleh.
How you doing today?
How's it going? I'm doing pretty good.
I was gonna say also pretty good. One of our old chapter friends came to see me, Jonathan, friend of the podcast, Princess and the Frog, which will come back later. He came to see me today, and we actually watched it together, so that was pretty fun.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Has he seen it before?
He had seen it before. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he really liked it, of course.
Yeah. I'm excited. But I guess, welcome back to Boozicles.
Welcome back, friends, to the podcast where we get drunk while we talk about a musical, and then at the end, we play a little ditty from said musical. And in the meantime, we'll educate you a little bit about some musical terms and some musical history, and we'll just have fun, most importantly.
Yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of stuff is copyrighted, so
yeah,
you won't hear the music, but sometimes you do. So
occasionally,
might as well just like keep listening.
That's why you got to tune into the happy hour specials. That's what they're for.
Oh, I was gonna say maybe we do this episode, but like we don't because it's Disney.
Oh, yeah.
But they don't know that. But they might. But they don't know that. True. So there will be get to that. It's like, oh, we didn't hear it, but we had a, Maybe the real musical experience was the friends we made along the way. Indeed.
I mean, isn't that basically the plot of this movie? Or the theme message?
I get, yeah. You're right. Once again,
there's
you're
another
right.
lesson that is also tacked on with the fucking storm rhino. Okay.
So
I'm so excited to talk about this.
To start us off,
yes,
classic bit.
Oh, I love your shot glass.
Oh, thanks. Shout out to another one of our fraternity brothers who got this in Colombia.
I was going to say, Colombian flag. Nice.
Okay, so now is for our segment was the word I couldn't think about, so I was vamping. So the segment is Newman notes.
Ooh.
Delicious.
Love
so
it.
The term is passing chord.
Ooh.
So a passing chord is any chord that basically connects the notes of two diatonic chords. And diatonic chords are a chord that's basically like of the like major key. So like in C major, no sharps or flats. C, E, G is like could be considered a diatonic chord. And so I chose this chord because it's very much in jazz and blues. And a lot of the influences of Randy Newman's music styling. He uses a lot of passing chords.
Very much,
in his compositions.
That is very cool, and I learned a new word today.
Chord?
Passing chord. It's term, I guess. Fuck you. Okay.
So this is all related. It was my turn to pick the musical, and I want to like be very upfront about that because I feel like you really haven't been doing that great, Raven. So I want to take the credit for this one.
What do you
I'm just thinking about
in my musical selections?
Yeah, I'm thinking the newest Annie. I'm thinking The King and I.
Okay.
I'm have I picked a musical that you're just like, this is
I picked An American
garbage.
in Paris, which had a very problematic narrative,
you
but otherwise was delightful to watch.
But I'm just saying, are like stinkers of like, oh my god, I have to pay money to rent this? I feel like that's been all you.
Okay, listen, sometimes you gotta take the bad with the good, Campbell.
Yeah. Well, this week it's good. So we did the 1996 animated film James and the Giant Peach. I picked this because like I loved this movie when I was a kid. I haven't seen it in a long time. I was like, let's see if it holds up, like I do with all movies from before
2010.
Last month.
Yeah. Oh, honestly fair.
You never know. And so it was produced by Tim Burton and Denise Denovi, and it's based off it's partly live action, partly stop motion, based on the novel by Roald Dahl of the same name, but also in 2010 it was made into a stage musical. Music by Justin Paul and lyrics by Benj Pasek for that version. But we're doing the 1996 version. I really like this movie also because did you ever like go to a gift shop and they have like keychains with people's names on them?
Yeah, and they always have James.
Did they ever have Raven?
Literally once. I don't remember where it was, but there's been exactly once I have walked into a souvenir shop and seen my name on something. In 26 years.
Yeah, I think maybe once. I don't even remember. I feel like I would remember if they did, but I would never see Campbell. Yeah. James is my
And they
middle
have
name.
they'll have some of the most random names that like, or random spellings of names. So I'm like, but you don't have.
So anyway, James was like my souvenir thing. Like we had like even if there was like, you know, ornaments or things like that you can like get from the store and things like that, James would be mine. Yeah. So I really liked this movie with that respect. Yeah. But it takes place in the 1940s in London. This kid James, orphaned, magic happens, has some dreams, and there's some bugs.
We love.
Yeah. And so with that, the drink I thought of, haven't tested it out or tried it yet, but basically there's a musical scene in the movie that when I was younger, it looked so delicious. When they're just like eating the peach and they had like in the mugs and it just looked so good. Like a lot of animated food does when you're younger. Like the tree leaves from Land Before Time looks delicious. Yeah. So it's based off of that. I don't have a name for it yet, but I thought we could come up with one after we try it.
Fair.
So cheers.
Let's give it a taste. Cheers. So the peach is like very mellow for me, which I like because sometimes peaches can be very, very sweet. Although I guess if you're starting with frozen, you know, I like it. The elderflower works really well in there, especially with the lemon juice.
So other things though, right? It's like kind of a frozen blended drink. Yeah. With frozen peaches, a little bit of ice, cooled green tea, elderflower liqueur, white rum, and a little bit of lemon juice. I think that's everything. And I wanted to do something that's also kind of earthy, so that's why I thought about the green tea. And I also had this peach smoothie like a year ago, and it was called a jet tea, which is like a thing. And it's basically like a tea smoothie, and it was peach and green tea, and it was like the most delicious thing I've ever had. So I was like, this is going to be a cocktail someday. Yeah. And then I thought the elderflower liqueur, like some of that floral stuff would go with some of the characters in this. Lemon juice for some brightness. And then I wasn't sure about the like main liquor, and I went with rum because I didn't want to do gin. I didn't want to do another botanical kind of thing.
And vodka doesn't feel quite right either.
Exactly. So I went with rum because also that kind of fit like the pirates that we see in this movie.
And also rum has especially silver rum has a fairly like neutral flavor as the white liquors go. Like especially compared to like silver tequila and gin, like it's a much more neutral flavor. So I think it works very well.
So it's also garnished with gummy bugs. Yes. But they do not make, fun fact for people that don't know, if you're vegan or vegetarian and have like gummy bears like Haribo and Trolley gummy worms, they have gelatin in them. They are not vegetarian or vegan. So the ones that I found were basically these plant-based Sour Patch Kids that I cut up and made into bugs.
Ooh, love that.
So here's a butterfly I'm going to eat now. But also because it's a frozen drink, these got really cold. So it's kind of like hard candy / gummy, which
love that.
I will take the next 5 seconds to eat while you talk.
Go ahead, yeah. I picked butterflies for mine because I was like, that feels like a fun bug, and it's like an insect. You know, butterflies are fun, and I think like it kind of worked with the vibe. But I'm trying to think of like a good name for this. It's very peachy, very herbal.
I'm trying to think.
This is something
because sometimes we do like play on the titles of the songs, but I don't think any of those would work. And I'm trying to think like James and the something peach, maybe like James and the boozy peach. I don't think is quite right.
What if we just did like the something peach? Mm-hmm. Or what if the peach pit? How about that?
We'll do the peach pit.
The peach
I like
pit.
that. Oh, this is really good. The main thing I was trying to do with this drink was the texture. The flavor and taste was secondary.
Fair.
How do you think this could be balanced differently? Do you think there's enough green tea? I can taste the green tea plenty with mine.
Oh, I can taste the green tea very, very strong. I do think like the elderflower and the green tea complement each other so well that I almost have a hard time distinguishing between the two flavors inside the drink.
I would agree.
They work really well.
I made like a whole pitcher of like ice green tea, overnight, and I've been my like go to like because sometimes I don't want alcohol, but I want something.
Yeah.
After work, so sometimes I'll take some like a flavored soda water and like tea.
Nice.
Like an iced tea, and it's just all you need. But now I'm gonna put some elderflower liqueur and a little bit of bitters, and that's gonna be a fun.
Nice. I've been drinking a lot more tea lately because I've been starting my mornings with a bit of reading time. Hence my texting you about the book this morning, because that's the newest one that I'm reading.
Would you like to share the book? It's a great book. I really liked it.
Yes. So listeners, the book I'm currently reading is called Braiding.
And then we'll talk about the musical.
Yeah. Okay. So the book that I am currently reading is called Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer, who is an indigenous author of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation. And the book itself is like she's a botanist and she's a scientist, and so the book itself is her sharing various indigenous like history, events, stories, instructions, and like teachings that they would pass down, and kind of connecting that and bridging that to just our greater responsibility as humans to our environment, and like the relationship that we can have with the environment, and also the impact that we have on the environment, and like how, yes, mostly right now our impact is negative, but it's possible for us to have a very positive relationship with the environment, and just the language of the book is just so compelling. She's such a good storyteller, which also makes sense with her culture, and it's just such a good read, and it's so educational. Like I'm a few chapters in, and already I'm hooked, and I've just learned so much, and it's I think just a really important book for people to read. Yeah. And it's also just this is definitely like the sensory what's the word, like kind of sensory sensitivity side of me coming out, but like the cover of the book is such a nice texture. It's just really pleasant to hold as a book when you're reading it. I love it so much. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so James and the Giant Peach.
Let's get into it.
I guess we'll do like what we're here to do. Yeah. Okay, so this is a Disney film. The opening credits, we see a lot of like insect and bug like scientific illustrations while this beautiful violin is playing.
Oh, it's so good.
But we open up in 1946 in the United Kingdom. We have James Henry Trotter. Who is played by Paul Terry. So he also did some work in this show Microsoap, but also in 2010 I didn't know this, but he was in the Mary the Night Lady Gaga music video, but that's really fun.
Yeah, that's fun.
But some other musical related thing, he was a bass guitarist in an indie band in the like 2000s and the band's called Glass Apple, but he also has a degree in civil engineering, and like since as of 2017 a math teacher.
That's really fun.
It just made me feel good.
yeah that's awesome. So we meet James on his birthday. So we see him and his parents. They're having a picnic on the beach, and they're doing some cloud gazing, and they tell him to find the cloud that looks like the Eiffel Tower. And once he does, they show him this like travel book. And
Eiffel Tower?
The Empire State Building. I don't know.
Excuse me? This is America.
They both start with an E,
Raven.
Vaguely, and my brain...
What do you mean vaguely? They do both start with an E. Even your justification is weak.
Shut up.
You don't even believe in it. What are you doing?
So they tell him that they're planning a trip to New York, and he's gonna get, to see, like, there's all these kids there, and there's so much stuff to do, and it's super fun, and it's the place where all your dreams can come true. And then... his parents are eaten by a storm cloud rhinoceros.
Okay, so this is where we're going to take a pause. Because the storm rhinoceros is like a movie thing.
Yes. Yeah.
But his parents were eaten by a rhinoceros that
Wait,
escaped
like
the
an
London
actual
Zoo.
like real life rhinoceros?
I believe so.
That's wild.
Like the rhinoceros is definitely a metaphor, but also his parents were eaten, I believe, by a rhinoceros that like escaped a zoo. And his parents.
I just want to point out that this happens less than 3 minutes into the film, and I was shooketh.
The runtime was like
hour 20.
Like, hour 20,
with
hour
credits.
22, with credits, something like that. We have to move on. We have to get through it.
I know, they were just like, we got a bigger story to tell. Like,
yeah, and they just moved really fast. Kids don't have very long attention spans.
Fair. You gotta shake them up with the storm cloud rhinoceros right out of the gate. Right. So
his parents were played by his father's played by Stephen Culp, who's been in Desperate Housewives, Revolution, 13 Days. His mom was played by Susan Turner Cray. She wrote and directed the short Through Riley's Eyes. She was in The Shield. But she also has, she made her hit stage show, Manchester Girl, based on her time in Tokyo as a model, which I think is going to off-Broadway soon, I think I was reading about, or there's some rumors about.
That's cool.
But I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, immediate turn, death, and now misery.
Yes.
And there's nothing more that Raven and I like in a musical than a sad orphan.
Indeed.
I also like how the movie, they said that the hungry rhinoceros, 35 seconds down. They gave the time it took to kill
him to eat his parents, which just
both
felt
of them.
Like in around this point, I was like, I feel like because I was telling Jonathan, I've consumed far less Roald Dahl media in my life than I have Dr. Seuss, but I am still enough that I'm still relatively familiar with Roald Dahl's kind of style. And I was telling him I feel like when it comes to children's literature, Roald Dahl and Dr. Seuss's stories have similar levels of fantasy and just kind of eclectic, whimsy, yeah. But Dr. Seuss is more hey kids, here's fun lessons to keep you going and maybe lift you up. And Roald Dahl's just life fucking sucks, deal with it. Life is grim.
Roald Dahl's you don't like eating these potato chips from the trash? I will beat you in front of people.
I will beat you. Oh my gosh. Roald Dahl stories are just I don't know, just a lot darker and more cynical.
They're fun.
We love. So now he's sent to live with his evil ass aunts,
who are so great.
They're so fun.
So we have Aunt Spiker, played by the fantastic Joanna Lumley, who many of you know from Absolutely Fabulous, but she's also been in The Wolf of Wall Street. She's also in a movie we will do eventually, maybe around October, but Corpse Bride, which is great because I love that movie and the music. And then we also have Miriam Margolyes, who plays Aunt Sponge, but also plays the glowworm.
That's cool.
She's been in a lot of things
so many
we've
things
talked about before. Yeah. She's in the Harry Potter series. She's in the animated show Hilda. She's in Romeo and Juliet. She's the nurse, the dental nurse in Little Shop of Horrors, the movie. She's in Yentl. Truly fantastic.
I love her in
actors.
everything I've seen her in.
These two are such a dynamic duo.
Yeah.
That they're just the thing about antagonists, especially evil duos in movies and musicals, you just have to it's either you're amazing or it's just kind of forgettable.
Yeah.
And I feel like these two are so wonderful. And I think it's something really hard to cast because they're just such big fun roles. They don't have a lot of screen time, but they're very impactful.
They have to really make an impact.
Lucy Punch as the evil stepsister of Cinderella, the 4 different variations that she's done it. Incredible.
Yeah.
And I just really like their chemistry with one another.
I agree. I think they kind of give Trunchbull energy in terms of causing misery to just gaining sheer joy from causing misery to children. I think especially in a story like this, being able to bring that level of both camp because you can tell they're having fun with this, but also
and
actually inspire a degree of loathing, is really important to a role like this, and they do a fantastic job. Yeah.
They elicit ire and disgust.
Ooh, yes, indeed.
But also slay.
Slay queen. So
and
then we get
say that.
we get a montage of him doing chores and handiwork. And I also think like during this time when we see the like setting that they're in, like where their house is, they show the view out like kind of over the hills and the fields out to the ocean. And the set is like so cool. Like even now when it's still live action, the set has it like is real and physical kind of, but it has a very cartoony look at the same time. And I think it already sets the scene for that sort of like fantastical elements before you even get to the animation, and it really kind of like it all works together, both live action and animation. I like it.
I agree.
Yeah.
Why is this child using a sledgehammer?
The sledgehammer is nearly the same size as him. He's so small.
Oh, they purchased a child size. I mean, it is the 40s. Child labor. F it.
I'm pretty sure we started establishing child labor laws before the 1940s, didn't we? Because wasn't it shortly around like the 1920s?
So just because there's a law, everything's phased out and great, Raven? How naive. Your naivete is showing. Ignorant.
Hush. Anyway, so we see the aunts eating dinner, and these ladies are dressed out. I love it. I love the gold sequin jackets. I love the night gloves. At home. I listen, dress up, fashion. Like, there's no reason we need to, dress ourselves down, even though we're having a little cozy meal at home.
I think this would be a really fun Halloween costume for you and I.
I agree. That would be so cool. So he, tries to come get food, and they give him not edible food, so he's sent to bed with no dinner. And he finds a spider and brings it into his room. It's a really nice spider. It's got a striped butt. We love. And we get into the song, My Name is James. And so we see him.
Poor little orphan.
Poor little orphan. He's drawing a picture, like throughout this, he's drawing a picture of New York City. So like the Empire State Building, just like sort of some of the skyline and everything, on this piece of paper that he's ripped up. And he folds it into a balloon. Very talented little boy, like folds it right up into a balloon, and then like lights a candle, lets it float away. But I really like this song. It's like a very simple melody, which I think works pretty well in a as a children's song, and just like in a children's story like this, especially as it's like James's solo song. And I actually kind of like that the vocals aren't super clean. Like there's a little bit of fry, and it's not like a perfect vocal performance, but I like that, sure, and I think it works with the setting and the story. Yeah.
I also really think it's funny that when did Annie take place?
1950s, I think, like 1956.
Okay, so I think it's really funny that also these like lyrics are devastating. He was like, I am so depressed that I forget who I am, but if I look deep inside, I can remember my name is James.
1930s. That's right, because it's like Great Depression era.
That's horrifying. But I also think it's funny. It's like, you know what? I can get out of this as an orphan. I'll go to New York City in early 1940s, kind of the same time where children are truly hated and despised.
Truly hated and despised.
Rightfully
and
so.
Literally starving in the streets. Yeah. We're all allowed to dream.
And during this, he like goes to sleep, and then Aunt Spiker finds the spider that he saw earlier that looks so poisonous, so deadly, with that striation. Like it just, and she's just immediately like, "Hey, I'm going to kill this." She screams and wails while James like tries to save it, because that's really his only friend.
Yeah,
some good old physical comedy. and Sponge falls down the stairs, gets hit in the face with fly swatter. And then James is able to get the spider outside before he is accosted by a very strange man who just appears and knows too much
everything about him. Yeah. And he brings him back his balloon. And it's full of like these little green like critter things. And he says they are crocodile tongues. And that if he eats them, he won't be miserable anymore. And immediately I was just like...
This dude's on meth.
Like, massive, blinking, flashing red flag.
Yeah, they're like the boiled crocodile tears for like 20 days in a witch's cauldron. There's like toes and wings and hair and the moon. I don't know.
All kinds of stuff. All I know is don't take random things given to you by strange men who know too much about you, and then consume them.
Yeah, so the old man is played by, and also the narrator a lot of time. I don't know why we credit him as just old man. That seems rude. But
he's also not even that old.
No. Who's been in The Name of the Father, The Town, The Usual Suspects. He does a really good job of being aloof.
Yeah.
In a very Cheshire Cat kind of way.
Yeah, I get that vibe. Yeah,
because very he literally disappears in smoke and nothingness.
Yes, and he warns James not to let the crocodile tongues get away, because if they do, then they'll like use their magic on just the first thing that they see, the first thing they run into. So James takes them, begins to walk away, and of course immediately trips and drops all of them. He's a child.
You clumsy bitch.
And these things bounce real fucking fast, so he's not able to get any of them back.
They look like if Mountain Dew made what's that pasta called? Rotini?
Like the corkscrew ones?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking rotini as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so if Mountain Dew made that's what the crocodile tears. I keep wanting to say crocodile tears.
Crocodile tongues.
They're tongues.
Yes. So then we see
his ants come out. It was like,
oh yeah.
I was
why haven't you squished that
immediately? Yeah, immediately goes. You know what? Just beat him. They're just like very open, very direct. It's not like, we're gonna talk about this at home.
No,
from the sound of my voice. I'm doing air quotes, listeners. Podcast is an audio medium.
Indeed, Campbell. And so Aunt Sponge notices a peach on a like sort of blackened, barren tree, and Aunt Spiker's just like, "You're crazy. That tree hasn't borne fruit in however long." But then she turns around and sees that that's true, and then they notice they're getting up there to try and pick the peach, and it keeps growing and growing and growing until it's giant. And so it's like weighing down the tree and like hanging. I don't know how it didn't just snap off, but magic. But it's weighing down the tree and kind of like leaning over the fence and everything. So of course the ants immediately commodify it and they make it a monument and charge people to see it. So then they send Charlie out. James.
I kept on thinking Charlie so many times from Charlie the Chocolate
He does give big Charlie the Chocolate Factory. So James wants to go and play with the kids and, actually be able to make friends and interact with anyone who isn't regularly abusing him. And they say, of course not. So they send him to go pick up the trash after everyone's left. He finds his balloon and there's one last crocodile tongue in it. So of course he immediately loses it. And he goes and pulls off a little hunk of the peach, and the tongue or a tongue hops out and jumps in the piece of the peach as he's eating it, which I thought maybe was going to come back as to he would have some magical properties or something because he ate one of the tongues, but it didn't.
He does. No, he does. There's plunging into the Arctic waters and being fine. I think is some magic. Raven.
Fair. And so the hole that's left in the peach forms a tunnel. He crawls in, and
it looks like a colonoscopy.
Indeed. He crawls in, and the film then switches to animation. So as he's crawling through the tunnel, he sees like the silhouettes of like grasshopper and I think worm and just like some bugs and stuff like up ahead, and then the tunnel opens out into a large cavern inside the pit of the peach, and he finds several large bugs who will all become his friends that we'll talk about after we get our next drink.
Spoiler. Be right back.
Campbell, do you remember being back in like 3rd grade and having like music class and learning to play the recorder and like hot cross buns?
Fun fact. So, I know a lot of wind instruments. I physically was not able to play the recorder. My teacher told me just to stand there at the concert. But yeah, I'm familiar with the concept.
That's so sad.
It's okay. I can play the bassoon. I've gotten over it. I don't feel bad about it.
Okay, well, we'll move on.
Put a pin in that.
Put a pin in that. Boop. So, unfortunately enough, there are students all across the country that have never before had a general music education class and don't have the ability or the opportunity to access music education and get the chance to learn tons of different wind instruments or even just the recorder. And that's why we are partnering with Education Through Music, which is an organization that partners with low-income schools in New York City to provide students better access to music education.
Also, 53% of New York City schools do not have a music teacher on faculty full-time. So Education Through Music also provides weekly music education by putting qualified music teachers into these schools.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the reasons this is so important is because motivation for learning means motivation for staying in school. And a lot of the students that are able to be involved in these music programs report that they have attended school when they otherwise would have skipped, or like stayed in school when they otherwise like wouldn't have wanted to stay, specifically because they were looking forward to music class or they were looking forward to ensemble, and getting to learn specifically about music.
And you can support and learn more at etmonline.org/donate. That's etmonline.org/donate. Help out. Do you have an instrument that you've neglected and now it hates you? Do you have too much money and think, hey, this can go to a good place? Neither applies to me, but I want to talk to you about the Daddario Foundation. They believe in the transformative power of music and that mentoring and building communities through music can positively affect social change. 100% of every dollar raised goes directly to support efforts to get kids involved in community music programs, acquire and maintain instruments, provide college scholarships, and support new innovation in music education. You can learn more and donate at www.daddariofoundation.org/about/donate. That's www.daddariofoundation.org/about/donate.
Hey there, listeners. Pop quiz. Who was your favorite teacher in school? Did it happen to be someone who inspired a movie? Did that movie later change the world? Because that's exactly what happened with Mr. Holland's opus, the story of the profound effect a dedicated music teacher had on generations of students. The composer for the film, Michael Kamen, later started the Mr. Holland's Opus Foundation in 1996 as his commitment to the future of music education. Today, the foundation works with schools nationwide to audit their music education programs, supply quality instruments, train teachers on basic instrument repair, and even offer customized consulting to make sure the school's program fits their students' needs. The impact of this foundation now ensures that hundreds of thousands of kids across the country are granted access to learn and play music in school, keeping music education alive and well. If you're interested in supporting their mission, you can donate online, over the phone, or even while you shop Amazon or eBay. Visit mhopus.org/donate to learn more.
Giant bug silhouettes.
Giant bug silhouettes. Well, cheers.
Cheers. I love stop motion animation.
It's such a cool art form. And I love, like, anything that has, like, physical and practical effects, I think is awesome. But there's also something about stop motion where, like, just the of course the world looks so real because it technically is, and like the textures and the what's the word, like everything feels like in such high contrast, like it just feels so like just so physical.
Which is like, I mean, it's so purposeful because it's so hard to do and it takes forever, so you have to like be very creative with like how you construct the things, especially things that have to move compared to things that are like more stationary. Yeah, exactly.
So inside the Peach Pit, we are introduced to our new bug friends, as James is screaming in fear for his life because he thinks they're going to eat him, which is fair because at least half of these are carnivores. So we have a grasshopper, we have a worm, I think an earthworm, ladybug, centipede, his spider friend from earlier, though he doesn't immediately recognize her apparently, and a glowworm. And they all introduce themselves in quick succession.
And they are played by the Old Green Grasshoppers, played by Simon Callow, who's also been in Four Weddings and a Funeral. He was Andre in the Phantom of the Opera movie. He was also in the stage and film version of Amadeus. The Centipede is played by Richard Dreyfuss, who was in Jaws, American Graffiti, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He was born in Brooklyn, so I thought that was fun because Centipede's like, I'm from Brooklyn, in the traditional Brooklyn accent that I just did perfectly. But he was also played Mr. Holland in Mr. Holland's Opus in 1995, and I thought that was really cool. Shout out to Mr. Holland's Opus Foundation.
Indeed.
And then, the singing voice for the Centipede is played by Jeff Bennett, who's been in a lot of musicals we've done, like Pippin Enchanted. But he's also been in, he's Johnny Bravo. Like, he's such a talented voice actor, man in the yellow hat. But also he's been doing some voice acting very recently in the X-Men 97 show that's on Disney Plus right now, which is fantastic. If anyone's like a fan of the old X-Men cartoon, it continues directly afterwards, and like the story, the animation, it's an incredible show. Highly recommend. And then the Ladybug's played by Jan Leaves, who's been in Hot in Cleveland. She was Daphne in Frasier. Said earlier the glowworm is played by Miriam Margolyes, but the singing voice is Sally Stevens, who's been in the music department on like so many different things. She served as choral director for the Oscars broadcast for like years. She sings in like the main title of like The Simpsons and Family Guy.
That's cool.
And like she was also in the music department for things like Super Smash Brothers, and like before she toured with Nat King Cole.
Ooh, that's awesome.
Like incredible.
Yeah.
And then the Earthworm's played by David Thewlis, who is Remus Lupin from Harry Potter.
Love it. Also
in The Sandman, Human Resources, Big Mouth. And then Susan Sarandon plays the spider.
Oh, I see that. Okay. The voice sounded familiar.
Janet from Rocky Horror Picture Show. Betty Davis in The Feud. She's also been in a bunch of Rick and Morty episodes as Dr. Wong the psychiatrist. Also, Lynn Ockman from 30 Rock as, you know, the pedophile. And yeah, I think that's them. So yeah, introduced to these bugs.
Okay, so as we're introduced to them, or shortly after we're introduced to them, we get into the song That's the Life, where they're each describing kind of their ideal living place, and I really like it because the music style switches for each character, and this is a really fun song. I really like the overall melody, like they all kind of like bridge into the same melody together at the end, and it's fun. It's a toe tapper. The music style changes up, which I think especially having we've already mentioned that Randy Newman did this version, having Randy Newman like as the composer especially, and being able to bridge all these different styles and kind of switch back and forth between them effortlessly, I think really heightens the just like entertainment quality of the musical portions, especially because they're so short. Like all of these songs are like well under 3 minutes. Which we'll talk about this later. But I do actually kind of wish that they were either a little bit longer or that there were more songs. Well, not that they need to be longer. Like each song is well contained and like is a good song. But the music is so enjoyable that I wish there was more of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah.
And so in the song, it's basically, they're like, oh, that would be the perfect like place for me. And coincidentally, New York
has all
is
that they
perfect
need.
for everyone.
Indeed,
Exactly.
indeed it is. So
and then we see that we hear the ants coming, and they don't want to get murdered by them because I guess
which they
people
absolutely
now.
would.
And so Centipede has a plan using his pincers and cuts the stem.
Yeah.
And so the peach starts a rolling.
Indeed. It rolls downhill all the way off of a cliff. And
over their car, over a fence that makes a really cool spiral staircase.
Yes, that's really cool. The thing that is a bit surprising to me is that everyone perfectly survives this, which I guess they're inside the pit, so maybe it's pretty safe, but they don't, there's no bumps,
but
there's
also
no bruises, there's no
magical.
Yeah.
He ate the crocodile tongue.
Mm.
All his dreams will come true if he takes the drugs from the smelly old man.
So they they get all the way downhill. They go off a cliff. There's a big kind of crash splash, and they make a little hole in the top and kind of make that into a sort of port. They climb out of that, and James realizes they are on the open water now. And I really like here in this scene, a lot of the shots in this are just really, really cool, really well framed. But here especially when he's out here, I like the texture here. The texture of the surface of the water is really, really cool. Like, I actually think they do a pretty good job of like making like with the ripples and everything, and like really giving the illusion of like how the surface of the ocean, like how choppy it is, and like how it would kind of look out on the open, and that, and like the texture of the peach itself, like the sort of flesh of the peach, which I don't know if they used a real peach or not, but like for certain shots, but it just looks really, really
I don't
cool.
think so.
I don't think so, but
buoyant and airy.
Yeah, fair. But yeah, I just really like the texture of all of these things and like just how they constructed the scene. It's really cool. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So James, he remembers back to what the strange man told him when he was given the crocodile tongues, that he would find what he needed, like over his, like pointed to his heart, and he finds the travel book in his pocket. So they decide that they are headed for New York City. And we get a quick little "That's the Life" reprise. Very fun. So then they got to figure out how we're gonna get there, right?
How we gonna get there, Raven?
How are we gonna get there? Right now they're just kind of floating along. They have no, they're trying to figure out how we're gonna navigate. And Centipede's like, I know how to navigate. I've been all over the world. Like, I can do this. We gotta hoist the sails and cut the jib and all of that. And they're just like, not on a boat, Centipede. What are we gonna do? So James concocts a plan to bait a few birds with earthworm, and then use a spider's silk to, tie them, lasso them onto the peach, and so he uses spider silk to attach them to the peach that they can fly them to New York, which is an interesting plan, enslaving several seagulls, but it works. It's a bit like Up. Well, I guess not. I guess Up is like this. You know what I mean? But cool, interesting theory. So then they hear, so they're just kind of getting out of the water, and he gets one gull. He gets one seagull snagged. Then they start to hear something in the water, and they see like a little bit of like a churn, like a whirlpool getting started. And out of the water comes a like steampunk engine, steam powered shark submarine that is so cool.
So cool.
This is so awesome.
I loved the grinding teeth and the just like the grinders in it. Yeah. It just like was really, really, really awesomely designed and animated.
Yeah, so cool. And when I was doing some of my background research, apparently the original script of the film was much darker, and the sharks were originally Nazis, which seemed interesting. So they managed to lure in some more seagulls after that, and they're able to kind of lift the peach like clean out of the water. But then the shark harpoons them, and sends out these little like mini shark flyers to cut some of the lines.
It's like little mecha piranhas.
Yeah, they're really, really cool. And so then I think Grasshopper and James, kind of jump up to try and like grab them. They're able to get them, but then the shark sends more like little mecha prawn things. So Ladybug has to like defend them, and it's so cool. She smacks them with her purse, like hooligans, ruffians, and I love it. It's giving like
you really liked this movie.
I really liked it because that's what it is. She gives like Mrs. Potts from Beauty and the Beast, just like any old lady energy, especially if she's British or like Southern or whatever. I just love it. I love old lady energy. And so she beats them out of the sky, and we're able to get the gulls like reattached to the peach. And then I think she also beats the harpoon out of the peach, doesn't she? Also with her purse?
No, that's Spider. That's Spider with the hammer.
You are correct. So they get the harpoon out and kind of like throw it back in the shark's like mouth.
Yeah, they throw it back.
Hush you. And the mouth is sort of like a grinding like churn of teeth, like an actual shark's maw, which would have 300 teeth. So it kind of grinds up the harpoon, which like blows up the shark and like breaks down the ship and everything. Which was just a really cool scene. I love when stories like this still have like some form of like real action. It's just fun. And I think this was a really I don't know. This is my first time ever seeing this story, so it was just really cool to me. And
they fly off.
And so they're sailing along. It's clear that it's much later in the day. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Well, there's a quick scene where James and Earthworm are kind of talking, and Earthworm gets like really scared. It's like, who's there? And James is like, oh, it's just me. Like, why are you so scared all the time? And he gives him Earthworm a little piece of advice because he's like really down on himself, and basically it's like, my parents already told me, just like, if you're seeing something, kind of look at it from a different perspective, like turn that around. Think about it this way: you defended single-handedly from like a shark and like got us to fly out of here. He's like, I don't have any arms, so no-handedly. And they're like,
yeah.
Just to like set up the scene for like later about like, morals of stories and allegories and things like that.
Yeah. It's really important to like the overall theme of the film. So then it's like later in the day.
The clouds look delicious.
Delicious?
Yeah, when they're all like pink and fluffy.
Oh, like cotton candy?
Yeah.
Interesting. I did not have that thought, but
You will next time you watch it.
Interesting. Okay. So Centipede is like, I'm super hungry. They're all starving. Centipede and Grasshopper start fighting. And then James has the idea of like, hey guys.
Over Ladybug's last bread.
Yeah. So then James has the idea, we're literally inside a floating food source, guys. So they start eating the peach. And we get into the song, Eating the Peach, which sounds like an innuendo.
Stop. I'm going to stop you right there. And so this song was the inspiration of this drink. And I think it looks pretty similar.
Yeah, for sure. Especially the when Centipede is like opening the sort of flow, like the flow valve to the pipe, and it all flows out. This definitely looks very similar. I see what you mean by the texture.
So yeah, this is a really fun song. They're just like, it's kind of manic, but they're just going through, it's like a real fun activity in rhyming gross foods. Noodles made of poodles is apparently something they've eaten. So these insects have eaten large mammals.
Indeed.
Compared to them.
Miss Ladybug also loves like hot dogs, mixed with something. I forgot what it was. The lyrics of the song.
No. He's like, hot dogs are fine, but hot frogs.
That's what it
and
was.
And soil with engine oil.
Indeed. Not real foods or foods that these bugs should be eating, but it's fun. We're having fun.
But, sometimes fruit ferments.
Indeed.
And people get drunk.
People get so fucking drunk.
And I think that's what happened here.
Definitely. For sure. So basically the whole point of the song is like they're all listing their favorite foods, but they're saying that this peach is so much better that this is all they would ever want to eat.
They're also starving, so makes
indeed.
sense.
Starving and probably drunk by now. So, then, like, they're all, full stuffed after they finish the song. Spider weaves James a web for a bed, which is really nice. And this is the moment that he actually recognizes, like, oh, because she was like, oh, I'm being so kind to you because you were kind to me first. And he's like, oh, you're my friend from my bedroom, like, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, it took you long enough. So then he falls asleep. He has a nightmare about his aunts. Valid, he's escaping trauma and abuse. Then Centipede, we see Centipede has fallen asleep at the helm. So then when they wake up, they are totally lost, totally off course, and it is completely frozen. Presumably they have gone northward into the Arctic or possibly Nova Scotia. Who's to say? So then Centipede, feels really bad. Grasshopper is like, we're gonna have to figure out our coordinates, but we can't do that because we don't have a compass.
He actually hasn't been around the world. He spent a lot of time between 2 pages of a National Geographic.
Yeah. Which tracks. So then he's like, okay, well, like, okay, I'm gonna jump down. I'm gonna see if I can find a compass. So then he jumps into the icy waters, and we hear the line, "He's committed pesticide." Hilarious.
Solid.
Fantastic. So then James is really worried about him. So he and Spider go after him. And we see, like, Centipede, like, he goes down, like, there's a big ship down there, like an old pirate ship, and he does find a compass, but then when he goes to take it and, like, tries to leave, he gets held back by ghost pirates. Fun.
That's basically Jack Skellington.
Yes, and I love, like, during this scene, it's basically Jack Skellington, and so then James and Spider kind of into the fray, and, like, hijinks ensue, and, like, during all of this, there's so many, like, small references, like, there's also, like, a Donald Duck, there's also, like, the parrot that, to me, reminded me of the parrot from Aladdin. Well, I guess this was well before. When did Aladdin come out? 90s still.
1994?
Something like that, yeah, so it would have been a couple years before this.
Oh, 1992.
1992. Yeah, so still before this.
They saved Centipede from being, like, stretched and then almost chopped in half. Question for you, though, Raven. Have you the, like, medieval torture device, the stretcher thing?
Of course.
Have you ever wanted to just, like, felt like, if I could just get on that to the right amount,
like, just get solved. A little, just that good stretch,
nothing further. Crunch. Yeah.
Definitely thought about it. Very fun though, highly recommend. So, so they narrowly save Centipede from getting, like, basically stretched to death and killed, by these pirates. There's a lot of death in this show. Again, tracks for a Roald Dahl story. So they all do manage to make it out, and they manage to get back up. For a second, they think that Centipede's not gonna make it. His hat floats up, and, they're really sad, but then he jumps out, and they're like, hey, we all made it. We're here. No one's dead yet.
Yeah. It's like, this is a kid's movie. No one dies except for the first, like, 2 minutes.
Except for the parents. No one dies in kids' movies except for parents. So then, Centipede, so then we kind of go, they keep moving on, they're able to get back on track with the compass, and so we see Centipede is steering, it's getting later that night, and we see that he's getting tired again, he's like, oh, I need some coffee, he's trying to slap himself awake, but this time, when he gets sleepy, Grasshopper comes up and relieves him. And, he's trying to resist at first. He's like, no, I said I would steer, like, blah, blah, blah. And Grasshopper just very deftly, like, pulls up a chair for him, sits him on down, puts a blanket over him, and he's out like a light.
They're becoming friends. They're relying on one another.
I will say, like, I do really like the degree of, like, character development and relationship building this movie is able to accomplish in such a short period of time. And it doesn't feel forced. Like, it does feel like they handle those arcs very well, even though, like, again, they have to be kind of short.
Like this, like one scene with Grasshopper and Centipede, the one conversation with Earthworm, Spider tucking in James, and he's like, "Hey, like get to know them. Like it's okay to like rely on others." To immediately like going to save Centipede. I think they do a really good job of that in a very short amount of time. I think because also the combination of what they like lack in like additional scenes of that is made up in these musical numbers with their like different like musical motifs that they like have like that like further has the characterization.
And I think also I think it's interesting that in the in the two middle songs, rather, each character, like you were saying, each character has their own musical motif that eventually bridges into the same melody by the end of the song. But then later, when we get to, actually, not later, basically
right
now, so James comes up and sees Grasshopper playing violin while he's steering. It's beautiful, of course. He plays a few pieces for James, like, I played this when I'm happy, I played this when I'm sad. And then we get into the song Family. And what I was going to say is that it's interesting that here, there really is just like one group melody. Like they're all harmonizing together. They all have different parts in the harmony, but rather than having their own musical motifs, they now have one joint melody. And I think just like that level of storytelling just in the music alone, right? Starting with James's solo, then two songs of like sort of varying, like very much diverging group songs and themes to this joint one. It's just really, really cool to show that group journey together.
Yeah, I agree. And I really like this song also because it's like nighttime. There's like shooting stars, and there's just like sometimes like random like toys or manifestations of like the cosmos, but in like a childlike sort of way that's going on in the background. And I do appreciate there's still some character moments in the song, like that one bridge where the spider is singing, and I'm just like, she's so cool. What a cool character. And it just kind of like turns into like basically a giant like solar celestial mobile. That I think it's just, I don't know, I really liked the art direction of this song. It's very lullaby. It's very easygoing, soothing. It's very like the calm really before the storm.
How this song and a lot of the background music we've been hearing in the background throughout the movie is very sort of quaint in its sound.
Quaint is the perfect way to describe the music in this movie.
There's a lot of like light strings in this, sometimes with a little bit of piano. And this particular song has a slightly like jaunty kind of melody that keeps it very upbeat. And it just, everything about the music throughout this film just feels very sentimental, very just like it just really plucks your heartstrings, I really like it.
It's like if a picnic was a musical.
Actually, yes, that totally works. Yes. And the harmonies are great. It's like like a 6-part harmony at this point. And it's fantastic. Their vocals like stacking together. It's really cool, and I like like I said, I just like this moment of harmonization, like harmony between the group as they like really solidify their relationship with each other now. So now they are very nearly to New York City. They can see Ellis Island with the Statue of Liberty. They can see the Empire State Building. But then suddenly the wind picks up really hard and starts to blow really strong and blows them off course. And they say, oh no, we're going to land in New Jersey. The worst possible outcome. And so it is the Storm Rhino once again. But this time, James confronts the rhino.
Ooh,
indeed.
Yes,
and he
King.
says, you know what? I'm not scared of you. I'm not afraid of you.
I don't even think you're real. I might be crazy.
Literally,
Maybe I
sure
do
I'm
have a
sane at this point.
condition.
I might be having a psychotic break right now. So the rhino shoots lightning at him.
I'm just on drugs that an old man gave me.
A random old man.
You're not real, sky rhinoceros.
So the rhino shoots lightning at James and the Peach, and it starts to kind of like tear it apart, like rips the steps out of the Peach, and he's, is like barely able to get back up to the top before they all fall off. And the string to the gulls is cut, and so the Peach plummets down to the ground. And here we see, like, we cut, and things are now like real again, like we're back in live action. James is by himself on top of the Peach, and the Peach itself has fallen and is impaled on the spire of the Empire State Building.
Of the Eiffel Tower.
Hush.
And he like coughs up the crocodile tongue so they're not digestible.
No.
And he turns back human. Non-stop motion.
Non-stop motion, yes. And so, like, peach juice is raining down on a whole bunch of people. They're getting, like, eventually a police officer gets, kind of soaked with some peach juice. And
played by Mike Starr.
Mike Starr, I like him. He's in a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah.
And so he looks up and sees this giant peach or item. He doesn't know what it is. Object on the Empire State Building.
It's very obvious what it is.
He's very confused by it. I don't know what else you could think it is. But a little girl is like, there's a little boy up there, and so then he says, "Give me the biggest crane in New York," which apparently is a crane that is as tall or slightly taller than the Empire State Building, which I want to know when they built that. To get him down.
Well, how did they build the Empire State Building?
Using scaffolding. Not cranes.
I know.
Yeah, okay. And by killing a lot of people. Because they didn't care about worker safety.
They did not.
So they managed to get him down. They're trying to figure out what's going on, what this is and everything. And then we see a busted ass car roll up that, like, I don't know if the implication is that they drove the car across the ocean. Did. Okay.
Absolutely.
So the car rolls up and out climbs Sponge and Aunt Spiker, soaked and slimy, but still with full faces of terrible makeup. We stan. And so they're, telling the police officer, he's ours, this is our Peach. They show them, one of the pictures that they took, when they were, selling tickets to see the Peach and everything. So the police officer's like, okay, well, like, this is certainly your Peach, it will go with you and blah, blah, blah. And they're just like, oh yeah, and we're gonna take James as well. And finally, like, James basically stands up to his aunts and is just like, no, I don't want to go with you. He actually, like, runs away from them, because he's like, they're lying, and I don't want to go back with you just so you can, like, beat me and starve me and tell me that no one loves me, and then everyone is like, oh my god. Like, everyone in the crowd is just like, oh no, get this child away from these people. So then Aunt Sponge grabs an axe and starts physically attacking him.
No, because they are right there. They have the paperwork. They have the authority, and because, people that, like, gain custody of children means that they own them.
Yes.
And, hey, we know what's best for this. Trust us, we're the good people, while we physically assault and destroy public property.
In full view of like actual law enforcement.
But it also gets complicated though because they're in a different country.
That's true. He really shouldn't have jurisdiction.
But also, like,
I don't know how the law works.
I don't know. When you said that, I was just like, is that how that works?
I don't know.
Because like fleeing to another, we're not going to get into it. We've been.
No, I don't want to deal with immigration right now.
No.
So at first, no one. So James had like tried to tell people about like, I was, I came here like with my friends, with like Mr. Grasshopper and Miss Spider and Miss Ladybug and everything, and no one was believing him. And so far, we hadn't seen the bugs. We didn't know where they went. But now they all appear. They all show up to save the day and help save James. And so Spider sends him down some little silk. He's able to lasso both the aunts. And they wrap them up, like a spider does their prey.
I don't know if they can breathe. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. We
also,
don't give
like,
a fuck.
this silk is like steel cables.
Yes. Indeed. And then they are presumably carted off to prison. So then James introduces all of his bug friends to the crowd. The crowd immediately loves them, which I don't know. I don't think New Yorkers are known for their positive relationship with insects.
I think it's more so, here's a novelty we can profit off of.
Absolutely.
Because, like, the reporters, played by Michael Garrett and J. Stephen Coyle and Tony Haney, they have really fun news article titles.
True.
And like it's a commodity. It's an
Absolutely.
exciting thing that's happening. So
Yes.
that's why they're more about
open, tolerant. And so then they start passing out pieces of the peach. Everyone's having a great time. And we see that they set up the peach pit, like the entire peach right down to the pit, and then the pit is set up in the park as James's new home, which is actually a pretty cool design, but a fairly small home, but still really cool. And just before the credits roll, we see all the like newspaper headlines of the bugs basically assimilating into culture and getting to live their dreams. So like Grasshopper becomes like a famous violinist and like plays with the orchestras and everything. I forget what do you remember?
The centipede is in a mayoral race.
Right. Yes.
The earthworm has a skin cream.
Yeah.
Earthworm smooth move, which is hilarious. Dr. Ladybug just celebrated like delivering their
thousandth baby
or 10,000th baby.
Yeah.
The Spider Club is a cool nightclub where I assume she eats people.
Yeah, and then Glowworm lights up the Statue of Liberty. Yeah. Very cool. Very cool.
And then there's a surprise party for James, and then it's the credits. And this is all going on. The song James. Good News is playing, which is basically just like a summary of the movie. Yeah. But if you watch all of the credits at the very end, there's another scene.
I didn't.
Do you want me to spoil it to you? Okay, so it's basically like a kid comes up to this like carnival style game, and it's called Spike the Ants. Ooh. And there's like at their little table, there's these little like aluminum animatronic ant, Spiker and Sponge, and then a rhino comes out, and you have to time it for it to stab its horn into like under their seat.
That's hilarious.
While they like spin. It's really cool.
That's hilarious. I love that. Okay, and then Fiend. So getting into our composer's corner, so we have, as we've said, music by Randy Newman, very famous singer, songwriter, arranger, pianist, composer, and conductor, born in 1943, still kicking at 80 years old. Started his songwriting career at 17, largely due to the influence of his, family, which is famous for composing and songwriting. So we've discussed both him and the Newman family in our Anastasia episodes, our Princess and the Frog episode, our Cats Don't Dance episode. So highly recommend that you go and check those out for even more information on him. But he is generally known for his like Americana, his rock and like soul musical influences among like R&B, pop, and some other influences. vocalist and pianist as well. So I think a lot of that influence was very evident in this music, and all the other musicals we've done attached to him. And so I'm going to kind of like leave that. Generally, he's known for, if you don't already know his works, which are very famous and very sentimental for a lot of people, but Toy Story, of course, You Got a Friend in Me, is a very famous song by him. A Bug's Life, Monsters Inc., and more recently, Marriage Story, which I didn't know he had scored for, which I think was a really good film, so that's really cool. But he's done a ton of different films with Disney Pixar, has won over 20 Academy Awards, and is one of the primary reasons that the Newman family is like one of the most awarded families in like the film and music industry. He's also won a ton of like Golden Globes, Grammys, etc. for all of his work. And really, this film was no different. It also was heavily awarded and nominated for the music and the story as well, and the film score. And interestingly, so the film reception was incredibly positive for critics. So it received very positive critical reviews, especially on its initial release. But it was overall a box office failure. So it actually grossed $300,000 less than its budget. I think its budget was $38 million, and it grossed $37.7 million. Which I thought was very interesting, because I think that's kind of a trend for these movies. Like, what was it? The Nightmare Before Christmas was very similar. Also, directed and produced with influences by Tim Burton and Henry Selick. And I just find it interesting that these kind of, like, grimier is the word that's coming to mind. Like, children's stories kind of didn't get a lot of traction in their heyday, or in their original time, but remain as, like, long-standing kind of almost cult following, for children of that generation, or people of that generation. So also something that I found interesting, like in the production of like the music side of it. So originally, Randy Newman was not selected to be the composer for this, because Selick didn't want Randy Newman. Originally, he approached Elvis Costello to write the songs for this, and then
that's so funny.
Disney was like,
now I'm thinking the voices of Elvis Costello and Randy Newman, and like what that Venn diagram entails, and that's really fun to think about.
Yeah. So Disney was like, no, he will not.
No thanks. We want nothing nothing like that. Let's have someone that sounds honestly very similar.
Yes. So then Andy Partridge was approached.
Of the Pear Tree family?
Hilarious. And he actually did write 4 songs for this, which were All I Dream of Is a Friend, Don't Let Us Bug You, Stinkin' Rich Song, and Everything Will Be Alright. And then he was unceremoniously replaced when Disney was just like, no, we're doing Randy Newman.
So much drama. Because I wonder if there was like some contract, because this was around the same time as Toy Story.
That was so that was why Henry Selick didn't want Randy Newman, because at the time he was working on Toy Story. But then
so Disney... I wonder what his contract was like, if it wasn't just like for the movie, but was like a larger contract on like multiple projects.
Yeah, and I think that did contribute to as well, because one of the reasons cited, of course, getting back to the commodification of art, Disney wanted to be able to maintain the copyright for all of the songs in perpetuity, which I assume their contract with Randy Newman allowed, but their whatever contract or employment agreement they had with Andy Partridge didn't. So that was why they forced Henry Selick to hire Randy Newman, which I, for one, am still happy about, because I love Randy Newman's work.
And you hate people getting paid for their work. And having ownership and intellectual property of their
famously, I hate allowing workers the means of production.
Yeah, famously. If there's one thing I know about Raven.
Okay, so let's get into our discussion question. So for this one, I wasn't quite entirely sure how to word it, but hopefully you'll kind of get my gist. I'm curious, what is your idea of like a perfect ratio of songs in a musical? Or, like, how would you go about determining such a ratio for a given musical? And kind of my inspiration, I'll just give you my reasoning for this. This is one of the first musicals we've ever done where I actually felt like there's not enough songs in this. Like, I want more. And I was just curious about, like, where would we strike that balance between musicals that have too many, where it's like every 2 minutes or something, versus, like, you could actually have sprinkled in some more here. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's interesting because I think it has to not so much do with, like, the music itself, but, like, what the plot is. Because musicals, the music moves along the plot. And then you have, like, musicals like Les Mis, where there's honestly, hot take, there's too much plot.
Yes, there's a lot that happens.
So then the music then requires multiple songs and reprises
really
and stuff like that. To explain everything, like, from that point of view, and it's just, like, too much. But at the same time, there are, like, say, like, animated musicals where I feel like there's too many songs, but, like, the plot's pretty straight. Like Frozen 1, too many songs. I like them, but it just felt like too much.
Fair.
That's a really hard question. I don't know.
It's hard to come up with a hard and fast rule, but I think, like, for this one, at least there were specific moments or characters that I felt could have used. Like the aunts, for example, I think could have really benefited from a villain song. Not that you didn't 100%. Still get their villainy. You know, they were still very impactful for being there, but I think, like, they could have used a villain song and that would have been really cool. I think it could have been cool to have, like, an ensemble number, like, at the end, just to kind of wrap things up. But yeah, just, like, I remember getting, granted, when I first looked up the song list for the musical, it included all of the, like, background music, like, just the entire score.
Yeah.
And so I thought there were more physical songs in the musical than there actually were. So I got 40 minutes in and I was like, we've only had 2 songs. What's going on? It
skips around on this list.
Yeah, I just know somewhere between a song every 2 minutes and a song every 20 minutes. Like, it's somewhere between those two extremes for me.
Maybe like 10 to 15.
I think that feels right. Like, and I think generally in a story, like, you're generally having things happen, you know? And, like, an hour and a half to 2 hour film, things should probably be happening in your story about every 8 to 12 or 15 minutes, I think. And I think it does make sense to not have... You don't have to have a literal song accompany everyone, but even just having, like, a musical number, even if it doesn't have lyrics, I think, like, the scene where they were fighting the pirates, for example, I think that could have benefited from being more of, like, a musical number, even if there weren't words necessarily. Like, make it even more physical. I don't know.
I think this is, like, one of the discussion questions we're going to disagree. Okay. Because I think... Yeah, I think, like, per time or things like that, I think I don't like the I think it really is dependent on the plot, and the plot includes character development.
Yeah.
Like I feel like through the music, these characters had character development. The ones that would have.
Yeah.
Like the ants were going to. But, like, I think they could have definitely added another song maybe for the ants. This is one. So I don't think there is, like, a good justification, because there's also, we have a lot of times musicals that have, like, songs that are, you know, developed, written, performed, and then cut out, and then you, like, well, here, or, like, extended cuts and things like that. I don't think they're... And also, like, not every musical is the same, because I feel like maybe like every 10 minutes kind of thing, I think that would do really well for, like, an animated kind of musical for, like, meant for children, based on, like, those attention spans and like those, then, like, from, like, that kind of respect. But from other musicals where they have to make, especially going from, like, a stage version to an actual movie, where they have to be very purposeful with, like, what is cut out, because you can't have 4 hour movies typically, and have it be, like, well received.
Yeah.
So I think that is, it's a plot and character development based variable.
Fair. I would agree with that. I think my thing is that I like for music to punctuate important moments and critical moments in the story. And so I think like a lot of times like with the introduction of important characters, just important story beats, and I think I mean obviously moments of heightened emotion, but also when there's anything that needs to be like explained or like kind of talked through, I just think, music.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I agree that like, yeah, maybe a hard and fast rule is definitely not going to work for like any sort of thing, but
I do think it's interesting to talk about because there are some musicals that there's way too many songs.
There's way too
many
songs.
There are musicals that are just like there's not enough.
And I guess I'm just curious. Like I think like as I watch more musicals, I think maybe I'll just start interrogating like what is giving me this feeling that there's not enough songs. Like where would I put the songs? You know?
I think we're gonna have to table this discussion that may come up in a future episode.
Yeah, maybe
this
could
be
a deeper
something
discussion in like a happy hour special.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
Where we like take a look back on like a lot of musicals we've done and just really try to like get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Really try to put science and logic and reason to art.
Yeah, it's almost like we're scientists.
Yeah, I'm a doctor.
Indeed. Okay. What are we playing today, Campbell?
So Raven will be playing the violin. I'll be breaking out the bassoon.
Ooh.
So bear with me, Raven, while we play My Name is James.
Love it. Okay, we'll be right back, listeners.
Bye.
Nice.
I think I didn't hear anything for you. I was just keeping at it. I think we literally, for once,
actually
landed at the same time
beat.
Without having to adjust to one another.
Yes. Which is awesome, because I did mess up a couple times, but I kept going, and I adjusted, and it was fine, apparently.
Yeah, it was, the world's still happening.
Shut up, Campbell. 37 was real rough for me. Also, I had only practiced the first page before we played, so I didn't see that high D in, what is that measure, 33, and so I was getting to that measure, and I was like, oh no! But I got really close. I think what I actually hit was a B, but it's fine.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to pick up to the 2-4 to the end?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So I'll start on my
and I'll just come in on 2-4.
Yeah. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Okay, wait, no, sorry. Can we?
Okay, so here's what I did wrong. With that measure of 2-4, I was like, oh, there's only one measure of 2-4. No, it's still 2-4 for measures.
I definitely went back to counting 3 and then had to remember that it's 2. Yeah.
All right, so let's do that again. Let's do that again. I was like, because I was holding notes off, I was like 1, 2, 3. That's the half note.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. 1, 2, 1, 2.
No. You counting off? We're counting up the pickup is 3,
right.
4.
Right.
No, Raven.
Incorrect.
No.
Actually.
What is wrong with me? No.
Nothing is wrong with you. You're perfect as you are, Campbell.
Correct.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Ooh. I see. You sounded real nice at the end there.
Thanks. My tone has gone, listeners.
Really? I mean, to me, you sound great.
Tone, embouchure, it's a muscle. You have to keep at it. Yeah. I don't think I've played the bassoon since almost a year. Last May. That concert was the last time.
Yeah. I think you sound
great. We got there.
I had a lot of fun playing that piece. I really like that melody.
I do too.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah. Okay, Campbell, what would you rate this musical?
I'd give it a solid 7. I really liked it. It's not that like there's any parts I had a problem with.
Yeah.
I just think there was a lot of things that are just kind of simple, straightforward. I mean, it is a kids' movie. Some development could have happened. Trying to rate a kids' movie like it's like a cinematic film,
a critical film,
yeah, it's just like hard. So I was like, oh no, it's a solid 7.
That's fair. That's fair. When I was first thinking about it after I finished the movie, I was thinking around a 7, and I was like, that feels too low, because like the only thing I quote unquote don't like about it is that there's not more Randy Newman songs.
Yeah.
But I think I'll give it an 8. Like, I agree, it's not like, it's no Chicago, you know, it's not like the most spectacle, the biggest musical, but it's a good story. It's definitely a nice children's film. I think it's got a good message, good character development. Really solid musical. Just could use a few more songs, you know? I like it, though. Yeah.
Also, heads up, Future Raven. I was just opening my case, made a lot of noise. Edit that out.
That is A-okay. You are all good. Also, Campbell.
Yeah?
Where can you find us?
Before we get to that, something I would like to do. Hey, listeners. If you're with us still right now, thanks for listening.
Yes.
We appreciate it. We were on hiatus for a while. And people like still listen, and we've been able to like bounce back a decent amount while we're like putting these new episodes out, and like really appreciate you listening to us. I think we have like a pretty like consistent group of people that somehow like us, and I don't know, thank you. It's really cool to see like we're past the thousands of downloads. We're in the 10,000s now, and it's just, I don't know, it's cool. This is a fun activity. It's really the only time Raven and I get to like see and spend time together, which will change a lot more.
Yes.
Especially when we get off this call, we need to pick a date where we're going to record in person. / hang out for a whole weekend and eat pizza and find another show
and
to binge
mozzarella
watch.
sticks.
And mozzarella sticks and jalapeno poppers.
Yes.
And I just really appreciate that. So if you're still with us and you're liking what you're hearing, please rate us well. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. And like, if you have some friends you think like you may be interested in this podcast, share it with them. If they listen to different podcasting platforms than you, we're
absolutely
literally wherever podcasts can be found. So Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, iHeartRadio, all those like third player podcast player apps. We're just on all of them. And if you liked us, it takes 2 seconds. If you could rate us well, give us those 5 stars or comment or like, and like actually some Spotify Spotify features let you like give some feedback on specific episodes. If you see that, just take a little time out of your day and that would really help. We're really trying to raise money for music education, and the more people that rate us well and listen to us, the more we're able to share those resources to people that may really need that support.
Absolutely.
But if you have some feedback or criticisms or suggestions beyond that, you can email us at boozicals@gmail.com. That's boozicals@gmail.com. And follow us on Instagram at boozicals, where we include the drink recipes for all this stuff. We share different resources from other music education nonprofits, other podcasts we like, things that are going on in our lives. And Photoshop some funny pictures. I've been kind of slacking recently, but now that settled in the move, have furniture,
nice,
able to actually do things, can be back putting in the effort that we want to in this podcast and that our listeners deserve.
Indeed. Thank you for that, Campbell. That was awesome. You're welcome. I think now there's nothing left for us to do but bid you adieu.
Bye.